Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we're talking about Mesopotamia by MeeplePug. Now this is a GameFound campaign. They're in the current 48 hours, so you can check out the link down below if you're interested. You can see everything that they have planned and pledged before the campaign ends. But that being said, if you're seeing this video in the future after that 48 hours, you are able to late pledge, so you can still check out that link and see the game and everything that it is intended for, because all of this information is still going to be true. You just won't be able to be part of the initial campaign anymore. Now this is a sponsored video, so thank you to MeeplePug, and this is also a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, and things like that are subject to change. This is not the final version, but today we're going to be talking about 5 things that really set Mesopotamia apart. Now, before I get into that, I am going to do a brief overview of the game, but if you'd like to see exactly how the game plays and even more about it, you are able to see a gameplay on the channel, so you can find that as well. I assume down in the links below, but you can see a gameplay between Alex and I. Now, in Mesopotamia, players are going to be maneuvering around this board, trying to trigger specific things, such as events, for those to give them certain rewards, as well as resource collection from the different areas that they're in. But there are also trade routes you can see up at the top that you are able to trade resources, but you're also able to own those trade routes, so be careful. Now, there are different tracks that you have to keep a mind on, where some tracks will limit your population as well as how high you can build your building, but there's also this track here which is going to be your tiebreaker, but also both of these are going to award points at the end of the game. But the most important part of the game is going to be your player board here, because you have your player board with your different technologies, and you are going to be able to upgrade these, and when you upgrade them, you're going to slide the card out and slide the new card in and have access to a new, better ability of the different things that you're trying to do, because the action selection in this game is going to be extremely tight, where you get one action for sure that you're able to choose on your turn, but then you're going to be using these dinger dice as your additional actions. You're going to roll them, hoping for those specific symbols, and when you are able to roll those, you're able to slot it in to activate those actions as well. So for example, I could choose to activate this action here, but if I rolled the right symbol, I could also activate this one on that turn. Now, players are going to be managing all of this while they're building the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, so that is going to be what triggers the end of the game, is that players are trying to build up this area together, kind of, where as you build the different levels, you'll get victory points for the level that you have completed, so you are building it together where there is only one building for you to build, but you're going to be all doing it against each other, hoping to be, honestly, the only one to build the whole thing, because that would be pretty cool for you. Now, at the end of the game, players are going to get victory points for where they are on these 2 respective tracks, as well as the different pieces that they were able to build of the gardens, as well as the different trade routes that they have claimed that may have victory points on them. And then there are also quest cards that players will be able to get victory points from as well. And then on top of that, any of these random events that have triggered, if they award victory points for the player, they will add all of those up to see who ultimately wins the game. And now on to our numbered list of the things that I think set Mesopotamia apart. Now, I'm starting off with my favorite. Maybe I should have saved it for the last, but I'm starting off with the thing that I think makes Mesopotamia not only the most unique, but the most fun to play. So you have these player boards, and just look at how you're even able to pick it up, but you have your cards that slot in and out of specific areas. So it also makes this picture, and you can tell exactly where everything is supposed to go, but you have these different technologies, and you're going to be upgrading them. And this is your action selection throughout the entire game, so this is how you're doing things such as moving, summoning new units, even upgrading the board itself is an action on this board. So all of that's going to be very, very important, but the thing that you're doing is you're upgrading them to make them more efficient and better. So at first, you're only able to summon basic units, but you can work towards summoning all kinds of things such as mounted units, or if you need to, there are battering rams and things like that that will take down walls that you can also build walls if you need to. So I just think that this action selection system is super unique, that you really are able to build out the different actions that you're starting to favor. And I really think that that's very important in games, that when you have a specific action that you're leaning toward, for example, this one here is you would use 2 clay to gain a tablet and then make a discovery. And a discovery is upgrading one of these areas. So that's a really good place for you to start off with upgrading, because the more efficient efficient that action is, the easier you'll be able to upgrade your other things. But here's the example of astronomy, which is activate any units a total of 2 times, meaning that they would be able to move around the board depending on their speed. Now here you can see the final version of that card is activate any units a total of 5 times, so it just gets better and better. But as I mentioned, you are rolling these dice, and that's how you are getting the additional actions. So as you start upgrading, you're hoping for different symbols, which could make it trickier and trickier to be able to balance what you're rolling for all of your different actions, trying to level them all up at the same time. But that being said, it can be really, really fun going into the different technologies that you enjoy playing with and becoming stronger in the different aspects that you want to play with. For example, you could be gaining more of your people, or you could be building more different things, or you can focus on gaining resources and growing your population. But the thing that sets this apart the most is going to be that these decks are actually asymmetric. So not only do you have these different technologies that you're able to build out, they're asymmetric, meaning that the different costs and things like that that you may do for the different actions are all going to be a little bit different depending on the deck that you have. So you also can hope for a bit of replayability because they are asymmetric, that you can have an entirely different experience because you have different costs and things like that that you may choose to favor certain technologies over others depending on the decks that you're currently playing with. Now, the second thing that we're going to talk about are the events that trigger in the game. So there are going to be these hidden tiles that are pop-out style where you don't know what's underneath them until you go over to that area and uncover it. Now, there are going to be events that trigger along with them, and these are going to be able to award players either special boons where it's going to give you something to reward you immediately, or sometimes it'll give you endgame victory points as well for being in control of that specific area. So there are these events that are going to happen, but one of the coolest parts about them is that they are hidden here in the board. So you can see these circles that are hidden in these different areas, and players are able to uncover them to find out what's going to trigger and what that area might have going on. Now, another cool thing about that is that some of them have timers on them that you have to protect them or do specific things for a certain number of rounds. So not only is that event uncovered, but other players also have a chance to come in and try to have a chance toward that event themselves as well. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is combat. But as I said, there is a gameplay on the channel, so be sure to check that out if you want to see exactly how the combat looks and how it plays out with the different choices that the players are making, because you are going to have your strength in these knuckle bones, and once you have those, you're going to use them to decide what you want to play into for the different battles. So you have things such as strength, tactics, and retreat, and you're going to have this little tray to secretly choose how many knuckle bones you want to apply to these different areas. Now, I will show you the cards in a moment, and you will know the cards ahead of time before you choose what you want to play, but you may choose to do a spread something like this and still save some for a future battle, so you'll have those left over on your player board. Now, to make this simple, I am going to show you a 1 versus 1 attack with basic units, but also just know that depending on the units that you choose to bring into battle, it could make it even more complex, and there is a system where specific units are very good against fighting against other units, but when it's the same type of unit, there's no advantage there. Alright, so for example, if we did have these 2 units squaring off here, each player would draw a card representing their unit, and you can see where they already have some strengths and what they're capable of. So you can see here that this one has a strength against horses, but no horses are currently being fought against, and besides that, this one has 2 strengths. So if we said that this was the red character and this was the yellow, the red character is already a bit ahead because they have those 2 strengths. Now, when you compare these knuckle bones, you'll compare them once the other player shows what they have chosen, and then the player that won the bid would be able to take half and apply that to the area that they needed it in. Now, when this happens, this is why retreat is also very, very important, because if you are able to retreat, then you're able to save your unit and go to a neighboring area. But if you didn't pay into that at all, then you aren't able to retreat, or if your opponent matched it. So that is something that can be very, very dangerous and a quick way for you to lose your different characters. But as I said, another part that's very, very unique about the combat is going to be the units that you're able to get, because certain units do well against others. For example, these spearmen here do well against the mounted units. So you are going to want to choose who you bring into battle depending on who they may be strong against. But there are other units that you're going to want to build as well, such as that battering ram, because that's what's going to take down walls. Walls are going to make different areas impenetrable for your units, and you can see that they will be protected until other players are able to create that battering ram and destroy it on you. Now, the fourth interesting thing is going to be all about these trade routes, because yes, there is combat, yes, you're also trying to build out these different things, you're trying to build up your different areas, and you're trying to go up on these different tracks, but another thing that you're trying to do is gather resources, because those really power up all of your other different actions. So you have your different units out, and you are able to gather resources depending on the units that you have in the areas that they're in. For example, you can see here is clay, food, wood, rock. So once you are in that area, you are able to perform the gather resource action, but that also allows you to perform a trade, which is going to be these up here. Now, you do have to be at a specific level to be able to do certain trades. But at the beginning of the game, players are all going to have access to the level 1 trade routes. And when you are able to complete it, you're able to take one of your little amphoras and put it in that specific area, claiming that trade route for the future. So for example, the very first one is a food and a rock for 2 tablets and 2 wood. And the player that does that is then going to lock in that trade so that when players do it in the future, they gain that benefit. Now, this is absolutely huge, because this means that in the future, when any other players take that trade action, those initial resources that are paid for the trade are going to go to that player, and then they're going to have those in the future to be able to do the trade themselves if they want the rewards as well. Now, depending on the trade level that you're able to do is all going to be based on the level of your technology. So as you upgrade your trade level technology, you're going to be able to access those higher level trade routes. However, as you can see, some also require you to have a ship, so I can also incentivize you to start working toward building those, because these trade routes can be very, very important toward the end of the game when players have a lot of resources and they're trying to turn them into the things that they need. Now, finally, my favorite thing about this game that really set it apart is going to be these dinger dice. Now, these are D4s. They're little runic-looking dice, but they're very, very fun to cast. They look very cool, and they give you these extra actions. So sometimes when you're building out these technologies and deciding what to upgrade, you may choose to do certain things based on the dice that you have available, because you want your symbols to match, increasing the odds of this really being important for you. These are really, really tactile. They're really fun to roll, but having those extra actions available, especially when you roll the wilds and things like that, can just be really, really fun to trigger some cascading effects that you might not have been able to do the thing you wanted for a specific turn until you rolled really well, you got these extra actions, and then you were able to cascade everything down. So these are just something else that you're able to look forward to and enjoy, and the little puzzle of choosing which dice to upgrade with the technologies that you're using. Now, finally, before we go, this is not one of my top 5 things, but I also just want to show off this box and how it opens, because I think it's pretty handy. So to open up the box, you're going to flip out each side here, and then this flips up. Again, this is a prototype version. This is perhaps not the final box, but I thought it was worth taking a look at. Now, as I said, there are 48 hours left, so if you'd like to see the campaign, the link is down below. This is almost your final chance to be able to back this project as the current campaign, but if you are seeing this in the future, you are able to late pledge as well, and I'm sure they would appreciate that as well. So you can check out the campaign and see if this is something that you are interested in, and if you'd like to see even more, as I said, there is a gameplay already on the channel. I've been Professor Meg, and I will see you all next time. Bye!